Hi. My first job with films was as an archival researcher in New York City about 20 years ago. So when I began making Disclosure, it was really incredible to revisit all those archives through the history of trans representation. Um, that history is so important to understand because it really gives us insight into how trans people are treated in the world today. When I started doing research, I very quickly realized there was no definitive book or resource on the topic. So then I set out and did 70 research interviews with trans people around the world, really. And from that, I created a database and an archive. And it was really thrilling to watch the history evolve, sometimes devolve over time, and to find the story of Disclosure within that. Editing was changing in real time. We had goals for sure. There were certain topics we wanted to make sure to address, and we also wanted anything that any argument we made to be based in a personal experience. So it came from the interviews, and then from there we would build out. Um, yeah, so it was very organic in that sense. At one point we did write a script, but that was already, we had done probably 2/3 of the interviews, and so then it was about figuring out what we didn't have and what we needed. um, but all that changed in real time many times.
This primary research that Sam primarily did himself and collecting the footage, but then putting it together with our interviews, it took many years because of the care with which we felt all the material deserved. Disclosure is the first history of Hollywood's fascination with characters who traverse gender. So we're grappling with some of cinema's and television's most beloved archival footage. And our desire, the mandate we gave ourselves was to present the footage with nuance. So to make clear in our framing and editing that you can love something and also be critical, and that there isn't just one way of seeing. And it was that kind of nuance that we believe and hope can be carried out beyond the film.
It's a really good question. Early on, I think realizing how far back the history went um, was simultaneously painful, but really validating, right? To understand how deep the roots of transphobia were, and that, some of the things we experience in real time now have a legacy, and so there was this data to back up these experiences. So it was interesting to kind of see that sort of excitement to find the material, but it was also painful, but then also validating, right? So it was a lot at once, and that was really interesting. It was an interesting process.
Parallel, kind of adjacent to what Sam is saying, I think it was the kind of it was overwhelming to see that the material goes so far back, that the fascination, that images of characters, the idea of characters traversing gender has always been there and has always been part of film and television history. Um, but also that it goes into some of the most popular um, and most mainstream stories, and that those stories have had a mass audience, and yet there's not until now been this kind of conversation around it, that it's kind of been hiding in plain sight. Um, was also a revelation.